Hello, welcome to New Motoring and welcome to the Abarth 595 Competizione. Now of course, thank you for watching. If you enjoy the videos that we make sure you subscribe, make sure you click so you get notifications when we upload a new video, and make sure you like this video, comment on it, share it with other people, and visit newmotoring.com. This is the Abarth 595 Competizione, and as you can see and as you probably already know, the 595 is based on the Fiat 500, but you have to resist the urge. It's very, very easy to get tempted to call it the Abarth 500. That isn't right. It's the 595, the Abarth 595. Abarth was founded way back in 1949, and at the time, Abarth didn't have anything to do with Fiat at all. A chap called Carlo Abarth bought the assets of a company called Italia that had recently folded, and they built race cars. Now Carlo's star sign was Scorpio, so he made the company logo a scorpion and then continued to build and race the cars that he'd become the owner of. It didn't take long though for him to start branching out, and he started to build performance parts for Lancias and Fiats. In 1951, the company moved from Bologna to Turin, where Fiat was and still is based. It was in Turin that Abarth built its first own car, the Abarth 1500 Biposto. The rest is history. In 1963, Abarth built the Abarth 595, the slightly sportier Fiat 500, so called because the Abarth had a 599cc engine compared to the Fiat 500's 499cc engine. Fast forward to 1971, and Abarth was bought by Fiat, and they started to look after Fiat's racing and rally projects. But in 1981, Fiat pulled the plug. They replaced Abarth with their own racing and rally division. Abarth was dead. Thankfully though, as you can probably tell by the fact I'm driving a car with an Abarth badge on the steering wheel, Abarth wasn't dead for too long. In 2007, Abarth was resurrected with the Punto Abarth. And then because the Fiat 500 had just been relaunched as well, it didn't take long for there to be another Fiat 500 Abarth, the Abarth 500. And here we are with an Abarth 595. Thankfully though, this does have a slightly bigger engine than the car from the 1960s. You can buy the Abarth 595 in several flavours, but they all have the same 1.4 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's just you get a little bit more power the higher up the model range you climb. The engine produces 180 brake horsepower at 5,500 RPM and 185 pounds-feet of torque at 3,000 RPM. The red line is 6,000 RPM. 0 to 62 miles an hour takes 6.8 seconds, and the top speed is 140 miles an hour. It's quite a bit quicker than a Fiat 500, and it's a lot quicker than the original Abarth 595. Between 2,500 and 3,000 RPM, you feel the turbocharger start to wake up. You can feel the boost building. Then it takes off. Beyond 4,000 RPM, it's flying. 5,500 RPM is peak power, but to be honest, yeah, anywhere beyond 4,000 and you are going to be moving rather quickly. Now there is a sport button on the dashboard that adjusts the throttle response. It makes the engine feel quite a bit pokier. The throttle is much, much sharper, and adjusts the steering as well. And I'm inclined to leave it in sport mode all of the time for various reasons, which I'll get onto in a minute. And then there's the sound. This is not a quiet car. Despite looking relatively similar in some ways to a Fiat 500, it's still recognisably a Fiat 500 of some description. It's quite a bit louder than any Fiat 500 I've ever heard. You look at a car like the Honda Civic Type R, something that looks mad, and yet when you drive that car, when you listen to that car, it's actually quite quiet. Whereas this, it's so small and yet so shouty. It lets you know exactly where it is, and actually you can hear it from quite some distance. It pops, it bangs, it growls. Yeah, it's It's a shouty little thing. I keep using the word shouty, but that's just the best word to describe this exhaust. It's called a Record Monza exhaust, and it has 4 exhaust pipes. 4 exhaust pipes. Engine aside, noise aside, let's look at the rest of the car. A clever differential is an option, and it's an option that this car doesn't have. I don't think it's the end of the world, to be honest, because it hasn't got a ridiculous amount of power. If you've got 300 horsepower, you need a clever diff. When you've got 180, it's perhaps less essential, but you do notice it when the roads are wet. It doesn't quite tug at the road, pull you into the corner the way you might want it to. The brakes are 305mm discs up front and 240mm discs at the back, and the whole system comes from Brembo. They're perhaps not quite as powerful as I imagined they would be, but truth be told, you don't need huge brakes on a car that is this small. It weighs 1,035 kilos, so it is a fairly light car. The gearbox is a 5-speed manual, and again, it's perhaps not quite what I was expecting. It's not as snappy or as punchy as I thought it might be. However, it is much better than any gearbox you'll find in a standard Fiat 500. The top of second gear is exactly 60 miles an hour, which is good if you're trying to do a 0 to 60 run. I think though what I would like is another gear. I'd like a 6th gear, because when you're on the motorway, granted the revs aren't too high, they're under 3,000 RPM, but still, a 6th gear would make it easier to live with if you're doing a long journey. As for the suspension, well, it's definitely firmer than a Fiat 500, but it's just better controlled. The Fiat 500 can react badly to poor surfaces. It can get bounced around, it feels unsettled. This has a firmer ride, but it's more controlled. It feels more sophisticated. And because it's such a short wheelbase, it feels nimble. There isn't a huge amount of roll. It feels what I would expect from a fast Fiat 500. It feels nippy and agile. To look at, I think it's a very pretty little car. It's a Fiat 500, but with more bite. What's not to like about that? Inside, again, it's normal Fiat 500, and I love these Seatbelt bucket seats. They're supportive, they're tight, they're comfortable, they're just nice. They feel very, very good. However, there are some issues. You can't really adjust the seat back without opening the door, unless you've got hands that are about as thin as a piece of paper. Also, the seat does not adjust for height. The wheel can't be adjusted for reach, only for height, so you either have to have short legs and normal arms, or normal legs and long arms. On the outside, you get a 595 badge, and yet on the inside, you get a 500 badge. And when you flick from normal mode to sport mode, in normal mode, the red line is 6,000 RPM, the correct red line. When you put it into sport mode, the red line appears to change. It's now 7,000 RPM rather than 6,000, so you might miss a gear. That's really, really annoying. And finally, while the gear lever may look nice, it looks like it's made of metal, it's actually finished with plastic, which is a disappointment, and the indicator stalks feel really cheap. They've just got loads of movement to them, and they just don't work very well. But that's the same in the normal Fiat 500, and it's just a carryover, so I suppose I can forgive that. It's just annoying. If you're looking for the best dynamic hot hatchback, this probably isn't it. Something like a Fiesta ST is going to be better to drive, more exciting, it's got more power, it's got more grip, it's probably going to be more fun in many ways. But if you're a fan of the regular Fiat 500, you want to stay in that family and make the next step up, then this starts to make more sense. I mean, buying a normal Fiat 500 isn't exactly a decision that you make purely with the numbers, is it? You buy it because you want one. And I think it's going to be the same with this. What do you think of the Abarth 595? Would you buy it? Or would you buy another hot hatch, something like a Fiesta ST? Let me know in the comments below.